Do bar chords keep you up at night? Do you find yourself avoiding them in songs? Do you see B flat and maybe get a little uneasy in your stomach? Well, guess what? Today, I'm going to give you 5 bar chord cheat codes to help you feel better about playing bar chords and ultimately give you some tips and procedures to go through so that you can get past those bar chords and get a nice good night's sleep. Without further ado, let's jump into some bar chords. Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and click that alert bell so you know when the next video is coming your way. If you're interested in more learning resources, head over to AllForUKe.com where we have a full searchable library of songs, song sheets, practice tracks, worksheets, and more. All for you, AllForUKe.com. Number 1. The first cheat code, and probably one of the most important aspects of playing bar chords, is making sure that you're in a good playing position and your arm is in a good position before you even grab the neck of the uke. So to get in a good playing position, I want to make sure I'm sitting up straight. I'm in a good chair that doesn't have arms on it. So I'm sitting on a piano bench right now, which has no arms. That's great for playing. So I'm sitting up straight. I have the uke at about a 45-degree angle. So the headstock is near my shoulder here, and I have the face of the ukulele slightly open so I can see the fretboard. This is my uke in a good position. It's cradled up against my body, nice here with my strumming hand, and then my fretting hand. I want to talk about my arm a little bit here. So this is a big, important part of the equation. We want to make sure that our arm is able to freely swing away from our body. So that's why I mentioned the chair, because if you're using a chair with arms and you're setting your arm down as you're playing, you're kind of taking yourself out of a good playing position. So you want to make sure your arm is free swinging here and that you have a nice straight line going from your elbow to these first couple frets here on the instrument. So as you're playing up higher on the neck, that changes, but when we're down here in the first couple of frets, we want to make sure our arm is at a nice straight angle here. So first and foremost, get yourself in a good playing position, make sure your arm is free swinging, and you have a good angle here going towards the neck. Number 2. Number 2 is all about the use of the index finger. Before we get to that, I want to show you a couple of the shapes that I'll be using as a reference point here for a couple of bar chords, because these are 2 of the chords that you're going to come across early in your uke journey. So the first one you've probably seen is called B flat. It's a B with a little miniature B next to it, and that chord is played like this, with our index finger on the E and A strings, barring them, our middle finger on the C string of the 2nd fret, and our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the G string. That's a B flat chord. Another chord that we'll come across is B minor. B minor is played by barring the bottom 3 strings, or all 4 strings, on the 2nd fret, and then placing our ring finger on the 4th fret of the G string. So B minor sounds like this. So we'll be using a minor bar chord and a major bar chord here for reference. So let's talk a little bit about our index finger. So the index finger works in tandem with the thumb to create a pinching point for the bar chord. We can either bar the bottom 2 strings, the bottom 3 strings, or in some situations, all 4 strings. So the important aspect of the index finger is making sure that it's very flat on the strings. And in order for that finger to be flat, we need to have our fingers in front of the fingerboard here. So when I say in front of the fingerboard, I want to see the place where my palm and my knuckles meet out in front of the neck. If my hand is pulled back in position here and my wrist is lifted, it's going to make it a lot more challenging to get my fingers to be straight when I lay them on the strings. Knowing that, we want to make sure that we're using the outside part of the index finger. So when I say the outside, I'm talking about this area right here, which if you feel that part of your finger, it's a little more bony and rigid and hard so that you can actually get a good bite on the strings. Whereas if you touch the pads of your fingers underneath here, there's little soft spots in between your knuckles, and that's what actually takes away from the sound, because when you don't have calluses on the flat part of your finger, it's going to make it so that a lot of those notes don't ring out. Place your index finger on the 1st fret, and instead of having it flat like this, I want you to try to tilt it towards the headstock. So you're kind of putting your index finger on an angle. Now that we've talked a little bit about the index finger, let's do a little procedure here to go through and start working on barring these strings slowly. So what I like to do first is attempt to bar the bottom 2 strings. And when I do that, I'm just going to use my strumming hand here to pluck each of the bottom 2 strings individually, because I want to make sure that everything is ringing out nicely. I'll also mention here that the way that I press my finger down on the fretboard here is I leave a little tiny gap of space between this actual metal fret and my finger. I don't want to be right on top of it, and I don't want to be too far back, leaving too big of a gap. So you want to have that nice and close, and we're just going to bar the bottom 2 strings here. So when I do that, I'm making sure my hand is nice and forward in my position, and then when I pluck, I can hear both of those strings ring out. Well, let's say that maybe I see a little bow in my finger here and I try to do that. Same thing. And you hear this sound. You may have heard this sound before when you try to do a bar chord, and that's because I have a little hump here in my index finger because it's not flat enough and my hand is fully pulled back. So to correct that, I want to push my hand forward, make sure that I'm getting a nice flat index finger, even to the point where my middle knuckle is actually formed a little bit of a hump here. So I'm pushing my hand forward, and now when I do this, I can hear both of those strings ringing out. After you've done that and you're able to do 2 strings, you move on to trying 3 strings. And when you do that, same procedure here. And then we do the same thing with all 4. Now, down here at the 1st fret, things are a little bit more challenging. So when you're doing this exercise, start up here maybe on the 3rd fret or the 4th fret, because as you go down, the tension that it requires to press down these strings is a little less. So actually doing bar chords down here in 1st position is more challenging. So as you're starting off here, maybe try starting here on the 3rd fret. And if you're getting all of these to ring out nicely, you're in good shape. If not, this is something where you really need to take some time and make adjustments with your index finger. If you find that one string in particular is not ringing out, try tilting your hand a little bit more to get more of that bony part of your finger onto the strings, or take a little rest and then come back to it again. If you're digging the sound of my uke, head over to allforuke.com/shop. You can have a Kali ukulele for yourself. When you buy your Kali ukulele through AllForUKe, you're supporting us, and we really appreciate it. Make sure you check it out. Concerts, sopranos, tenors, baritones, a wide selection of accessories, capos, and more. All for you, allforuke.com/shop. Number 3. Number 3 is all about the thumb and thumb pressure, creating a pinch point in between your index finger and your thumb. So in our last exercise, we were talking about getting the index finger down, but without good thumb pressure, that just doesn't work. So the thumb is really important here, and I want to show you my thumb position behind my index finger. So I'm just barring the bottom 2 strings here with my index finger, but I want you to take note that my thumb is right in the middle of the neck, and it's right behind the 1st fret. So it's not over here by the 3rd fret, it's not behind the headstock, it's right behind the 1st fret, because that's how I'm creating the pinch point with my index finger. So that gives you a nice bite on the string. So something you can do to practice is keep your thumb static and just take your index finger and lift it off and place it back down. You can do this while you're watching Netflix or whatever you're doing to pass the time. Having your thumb in good position is all tied into having your arm in good position, having the uke at the nice angle, being in good position when you play. This all ties together into playing your bar chords. So obviously, as you move the bar chords up, let's say we're playing this B flat chord up here as a C chord. Well, my thumb is going to travel and it's going to stay right behind that index finger as I play this chord up here. Now I'm behind the 3rd fret. Number 3 is all about the thumb and the thumb pressure, creating that nice pinch point. Number 4. Number 4, building the chord shape. So when I talk about building the chord shape, what I mean is I'm actually going to start off by just trying to get a couple of these strings to ring first before I complete the chord. So just grabbing the full chord and playing it, and then having one string not work every time you do it is not productive. So what I like to do is I kind of break this down finger by finger and make sure that everything is ringing as I go. So I'm down here, I have my index finger on the bottom two strings. I play those, and I go, okay, cool, everything is sounding good. Now, if I'm doing that consistently, I'll add my middle finger to the C string now. Now, as I add my middle finger for this B flat chord, I want to note here that I'm really trying to stay on my fingertip with my middle finger on the C string. If it's laying down flat like this, I'm going to mute the string below. So this one is an important addition to the chord because now I have all three of these strings ringing. If I'm laying down, I'm going to get that buzz again. So that's something to check. Make sure your fingernail is looking right back up at you when you do that. And then after you've done that, keep your hand relaxed and move your ring finger up here to the G string of the 3rd fret. And you're going to do the same thing. Try to make sure you're on your fingertip, your fingernails facing you, and when you play that chord, everything should ring. Now let's say every time you do this, by the time you add your middle finger, you're losing a little bit of the sound or you're getting a deadened sound. When you do that, try taking that chord and moving it up a little bit, seeing if it works when you play a C chord. That might be an option. If it doesn't work, try a little higher. See if that works. Or what I like to recommend is taking a little break when you're practicing bar chords because they put a lot of tension and strain in your hands when you're playing them. So I encourage you as you're doing this, relax your fingers, shake them out, kind of stretch your hand a little bit and spend a little bit of time doing bar chords each session. Don't spend your entire time doing bar chords. Just make sure that you're allocating a little time of your practice to work on them and taking your fingers, putting them on and off. You don't even have to strum them all the time. Just get used to doing that shape. Number 5. If the first 4 cheat codes aren't working for you, here is number 5. Let's say you're playing the B flat chord and your index finger down here is just not feeling it. You're not able to get it. Your finger's just not set up. Well, here's one suggestion I've tried with many of my students is instead of just barring the bottom 2 strings, you can actually bar all 4 strings with your index finger. And sometimes getting that good tilt with your finger will help you grab this full chord. And you know what? It's perfectly okay to play this as a full bar. You don't have to just bar the bottom 2 strings. Sometimes that's uncomfortable and your hand just doesn't want to do it. So try barring the full 4 strings here for this chord. Now, if that's not working for you, I've mentioned this as well, but I want to reiterate, try this up a little bit higher where the string tension isn't so much. So if you're really struggling down here in the first couple frets, move up to the 3rd fret or 4th fret and try to compress those strings down there, and it might be a little bit easier for you. So another suggestion, I learned this from a fellow musician who's another teacher of the guitar. He said, what I do with a lot of my students is we try putting a capo on and then try the bar chords in front of that. So you can get one of these little doohickeys here, this Ohana capo that I have here. So what a capo does is it compresses the strings down at a different fret, basically taking the place of the nut here. So this also brings the strings closer to the fretboard. So maybe, just maybe, try doing that same B flat shape down here by the capo. Now it's going to obviously change the name of the chord and change the pitch, but it also brings our strings closer and makes them easier to press down. So trying the capo or trying barring the entire 4 strings are a couple of options here for getting over the bar chord hump. And then my last suggestion would be to try some different easier shapes. So you don't necessarily have to try B flat right out of the box or B minor out of the box. Maybe start by trying B minor 7, where you just have to bar all 4 strings and play those. That's an option. Or maybe try the little G minor 7 here, where we don't play with the ring finger, we just play the bottom 3 strings. So figure out, there's a couple easier versions of bar chords just to kind of build that confidence. And I feel like confidence and perseverance are a big part of the equation as you get into bar chords. Before I give you the super secret bonus tips, make sure you jump over to AllForUKe.com where I've got PDFs, worksheets, exercises, practice tracks, basically everything you need to advance yourself as a uke player. Go over and check it out, and make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all those good things on the YouTube video here. I appreciate you. Bonus tips. Yes, you waited all this time to get a couple of new tips, and I've got them for you. So, now that we've been through bar chords and we've talked a little bit about the different things and components that you need in procedures, if it's all still not working, there's a couple more lifelines I have for you. One of them is maybe you try some different strings. So all strings have a little bit of a different tension to them. If you could find some that are a little bit thinner gauge, so if you look at the little numbers on the back of the package on the strings, find some that are a little thinner. Those might be easier to press down. Or just try some different sets on your ukes, and maybe one of those will be the golden ticket that you need to press down the strings. If the strings aren't the thing, maybe you try a different uke. Maybe you try doing a bar chord on a tenor versus a soprano. Now this is something you might have to go to a shop to actually pick up a couple different ukes to try this with, but I've seen this with some of my students where on one of their ukes they have a hard time with bar chords, but suddenly on this other uke, it works. So that's another option you have. And then the final thing I want to say about bar chords is they are tough. They do require time and perseverance. Instant gratification, like scrolling through a phone, that doesn't happen with bar chords. You really need to spend time. You have to do them every day. You have to focus. And do it with a smile on your face because that just makes it all more fun. Thank you so much for watching this video. Come back for the next one. My name's Kevin. I'll see you next time.